So this term or this catchphrase, trauma informed, has become really prevalent in many different industries, education, healthcare, but of course also in our industry and in the yoga world. And there's a good and a bad side to that. The good news is that that means that we've got a whole lot of people having this conversation right now. What does it mean to be trauma informed? The bad news, I think, is that sometimes that means the term has lost its meaning, or the term is used in situations or in contexts that really don't reflect what it means to be trauma informed. To me, being trauma informed, being a trauma informed yoga teacher, being a trauma informed professional, is really about compassion. Understanding the nature of trauma, the consequences of trauma, the experience of trauma, having done the work on yourself to know how trauma has impacted you in your own life, very naturally breeds empathy and sensitivity and compassion for those we work with. How it shows up for me in my teaching and in my work, I work with folks with eating disorders, and man, sometimes they can act in really strange ways. They can act in ways that elicit all kinds of negative feelings in me. So they might lash out at me. They might say, "Who are you to be a yoga teacher? You know, if I get recovered from an eating disorder, am I going to look like you someday?" I mean, and I'm being serious. They do say these things. But being trauma informed gives me the knowledge and empathy to remember what that experience was like. To know deep in my bones why they lash out, to know deep in my bones what the suffering is that elicits those kinds of behaviors. So to me, it's deep work. Being trauma informed is not just a label you put on to sell a yoga course. It has to do with your work as a person, how you relate to others, empathy, compassion.
It's so broad, right? So I agree. You really have to do the work yourself, and you have to do the work on you before you really give it out to others. It's like when you are a teacher, you don't teach it unless you've first experienced it and done the work yourself. And we have to have these tools to be able to provide the service to others. And it does give you compassion and empathy. And I work with veterans and active duty servicemen and women. And though I'm not a veteran, I live in these communities. And, I'm working with people with physical disability, and to be able to walk into the room and not feel sorry for them. And that's a big issue, because I know a lot of teachers that I speak to, how can you do this work without going in and just breaking down? It's like I can be in it with them and meet them where they are. It's easy to walk in and teach just a traditional class, and a lot of teachers do that. And I think also when you're trauma informed, you assume that everyone in the room has had some sort of trauma. And I think it's so important to keep that in mind. You don't know who's walking in the room, and you don't know what their background is. And doing the work and being there and feeling that yourself is important. And you have to go back to safety, predictability, and control in the room, and knowing what you're working with and knowing the populations that you're working with.
Yeah, what you said about going, you may not have experienced what some of the vets and active duty service members have experienced, but you bring that approach of not feeling sorry for them. What that brought up for me is, I think if I were to identify at least one, I mean, there's many common threads in a trauma-informed approach, but one that's really important is agency, emphasizing agency. So, I see, especially in the yoga space right now, all of these really hard and fast rules around, well, if you're trauma informed, you never do assist, you never touch a student, you know, all of these black white things. I'm not so much a fan of that black and white approach. It really depends on the situation, the student, the context, you know, your scope of practice, all of those things. But the one common thread is that a trauma-informed approach emphasizes agency. We recognize that each person is a person, is a person that has the right and the ability to direct their own experience. And for me in my work, what that often means is not minimizing experience, but also not assuming a person doesn't have the resources to heal. Not going in with this like, oh, well, you know, you've experienced trauma, so I'm not going to do any of these things. I'm not coddling, not assuming a person is broken or ill or sick, or even some of the words we hear a lot, marginalized, under-resourced, all of these things. For me, a trauma-informed approach is recognizing that each person has the resources within them to heal. And so I come at them as a whole person, knowing full well that not only can they recover, but I come with that approach of assuming that they will, and I'm just one person on that journey.
It's like each person is no different than you and I.
Yeah.
You know, and we meet them exactly where they are. And each person has different problems, if you will. I don't even like that phrase, but meeting them where they are, and there are different avenues for that healing. Not one size fits all.
Yeah, it's not coming at that place of I am the healer and you are the one to be healed. I am the yoga teacher and you are the student. It's, as you said, meeting each person and seeing them as no different than you. And that's, I mean, that's the essence of the yoga tradition.
There's no hierarchy there. It's, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Let's try this. And if that doesn't work, then what?
Yeah. And assuming that they actually have the ability to say, you know, oh, that's not working for me, and being in that inquiry and curiosity.
So in the adaptive world, you know, we try, that doesn't feel right. Okay, well then let's try this.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that conversation, having a conversation with people, not assuming that you have the information to pass down, but being in inquiry and in process with them, what's working, what's not working, and yeah, none of that hierarchy.
Yeah, yeah.